Welcome to the Michiana VegFest, where wellness meets community and conscious living takes flight. I'm your host, Jamila Blue, and I am so glad you're here. This is your space to expand, evolve, and grow together. Each episode, we celebrate the heart of Michiana through real conversations with local practitioners, healers, creatives, and community builders who are lighting the way towards connection, balance, and transformation. Whether you're just beginning your journey or deep in your practice, you'll find inspiration, insight, and a sense of belonging right here in the Hive. At Conscious Michiana, we are all about uniting people, sharing resources, and co creating a thriving, holistic community. So let's get buzzing, and thank you for being a part of this conscious collective. The Michiana Hivecast, buzzing with wellness, connection, and conscious living in Michiana. Expand, evolve, grow.
January invites us towards reflection, renewal, and intention setting. And for many, that includes how we nourish our bodies, care for the planet, and support one another. This month, we are exploring Veganuary, a global invitation to try plant based eating, rooted not in perfection, but in curiosity, compassion, and conscious choice. Today, I am honored to be joined by Michael Pound, the chair of Michiana VegFest, who is deeply involved in building community centered experiences around plant based living. Whether you're plant based, plant curious, or simply exploring more mindful living, this conversation is for you. Welcome, Michael. Michael, can you share a bit about your personal journey with plant based living and how it connects to conscious wellness for you?
Yeah, I I haven't actually eaten red meat now for 22 years.
Wow, that's a long
Um,
time.
but it's been a slow process towards fully being a vegan. I really started to worry about food and the food chain in when I lived in the UK with mad cow disease. And we discovered that we'd been feeding cows ground up other cows and all kinds of other stuff that had caused this serious brain disease. Um, and there was panic. Whole herds were slaughtered. Uh, no meat was allowed to be exported. Nobody wanted to buy the meat, so there had to be a whole reset of. And this is in the 70s and 80s. Whole reset of the British meat industry. And that started me kind of thinking, but I didn't do anything about it. I was a meat and potatoes and vegetables, and I kept doing that. But when I met my late wife 20 some years ago, she was like a recovering vegetarian, and she had, because she didn't cook very well, she was worried about getting protein, so she'd gone back onto poultry and fish, but was not eating red meat. So I just gave up red meat at that point. And because I was the cook in the family, I got pretty good to cooking without red meats and things like that. But then we kind of decided, for two different reasons, me from an environmental perspective, her from um, the animals, the animal cruelty, was that we would stop all poultry and we just went to fish. But the more and more I read, the more I was getting a bit more worried about that, with plastics, microplastics, and all kinds of other diseases in fishes. So um, when I got together with my current wife, Catherine Perry, who was one of the founders of Michiana VegFest, um, she kind of educated me a little on uh, the background behind, for instance, fish, and showed me a film called My Octopus Teacher, and then took me to a film called Cow, which was about dairy herds. So in the UK, and I came out of both of those films, giving up fish, and then decided to give up dairy and join her completely in being vegan. And for me, as I say, it really was a lot about environmental, obviously concern for the animals. But a wonderful side effect for me was the health. And I think that's why I think Veganuary really gives people the opportunity to try plant-based and see what it does to their health, how they feel with it. Because for me, I was definitely overweight. I had been diagnosed as pre-diabetic, and my cholesterol was high. Within 3 months, my cholesterol was down in the normal range. In fact, in a lower range. My doctor recently said he'd love to swap places with me on the cholesterol numbers, and I said, well, just go vegan. And also, as I say, my cholesterol level came down into the normal levels, and I dropped about 35 pounds, and just felt so much better, and not just lightness in the body, but lightness in the mind and the feeling. And so, as I say, for me, it was environmental, it was animal cruelty, and it was health. And I guess health has kind of crept up that chain for me, because as I say, I do feel a lot better since God. And I've been vegan now 3.5 years.
Mm-hmm. It's wonderful. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Michael, how would you describe Veganuary to someone who's more wellness or values oriented than food focused?
Well, I think, it's always good to start the year. I mean, we should do it throughout the year. And all these things we promise ourselves at the beginning of the year. I think Veganuary gives people the opportunity to reassess their link to the environment, to nature, to animals. It gives people that opportunity to try something new. We all get into habits of eating, what's out there. I think having a purpose to our eating, having an intentional approach to not causing any cruelty to animals, to looking after ourselves both from a physical but also from a mental point of view, and then to feel good about what we're doing to the environment and to nature. I think it gives people the opportunity to do a reset and be mindful about what they put in their bodies. Because we tend to not be very conscious about that.
Mm-hmm.
People are driving past the McDonald's and they say, let's go have a quick snack or something, or meal. And I think Veganuary kind of, I hope, gives people that time to think, what's a better way of living?
Mm-hmm.
And it really does impact so many areas of our lives if we can go purely plant-based.
Thank you. Michael, what misconceptions or fears do people often have about Veganuary, and how do you gently reframe them?
Well, one of the biggest always is about protein. People say, well, what happens if I give up meat? I mean, how am I going to get my protein? And it's a common misconception that protein only comes from animals. And, we get proteins from all over the place: lentils, chickpeas, black beans, all the soy products, tofu, tempeh, edamame. It just goes on and on. All the seeds and nuts, the whole grains, quinoa and things like that. Um, and some vegetables, spinach, broccoli, peas. So there's that worries people about trying going vegan, even for this kind of just this month, is where's the protein coming from? And there's so many opportunities. And so many restaurants these days are catering for vegans, not as many as we would like, but it's very easy to find places to eat and get the right protein. And then there's some other issues that people mention, B12, which uh, has often been seen to come from meat. The problem is most meat is grown in an industrial environment away from the soil where the B12 was picked up from. So now, especially most cows, have to be fed supplements of B12. So why not just take a B12 supplement ourselves? And I think that's one of the things is that and the other issue is that people say, well, how are we going to grow enough food for everyone to go plant-based? And the problem is, at least 40% of what we grow, we feed to animals to eat. So, and I think I'm understating that. So, we can, if necessary, what we really need to do is cut out the middle animal. We can grow the crops, we can eat them, rather than feeding them to animals in a horrible environment of industrial agriculture.
How can people approach Veganuary with self-compassion rather than an all or nothing mindset?
As well as Veganuary, there's also the concept of meat-free Mondays or meat-free Fridays or whatever. Even just dipping a toe in the water and having some days where you purposely don't eat meat is a great way to start approaching it. So, the full dive into veganism, I think actually a lot of us who are vegan have gone straight in. But a lot of people have kind of crept up on it, a little bit like I did. And so taking red meat out of the diet, taking dairy out of the diet, you can do this slowly, one piece at a time. It doesn't have to be concentrated in 1 month. The nice thing about Veganuary, I think, is that it steps up the visibility of plant-based eating and veganism. So it makes people start to think. And I think that's always, it's like dry January and whatever, all the others that we hear about. I think it just gives people that opportunity to try something, see how it works, adopt parts of it they enjoy. I mean, we would love everyone to go plant-based, but we recognize that's hard for some people. But once you're there, actually, it's an incredibly enjoyable way of living. And it is a way of living. It isn't just about food.
Yeah,
it's about being conscious, about what we wear. Is it an animal product? Is it leather? There are so many alternatives these days that there's really no need to do this horrible industrial agriculture that we have.
How does our local VegFest community support people who are exploring plant-based living for the first time?
We have a number of sites. Our website, MichianaVegFest.org, has a list of restaurants that are vegan friendly. We really only have one totally vegan restaurant in the area, but there are a whole raft of others that provide vegan menus or vegan options in their menus. So we've got that on the site. We also have a Veg Michiana group on Facebook, and there we organize some meetups, and it isn't, you don't have to be vegan to come to those. Come along and talk to vegans. Come along and try some vegan food at restaurants that and we go from restaurant to restaurant during the year. We also have a separate little kind of group called Veg EDU, where if someone would like us to come and talk to a group, I've talked to some schools, I've talked to my Rotary Club, the Herbivore Society up at Fernwood. I did a presentation last year. So we've got some people who will come out and talk about veganism, plant-based living, and try and knock down some of those preconceptions that you talked about earlier, the protein and all those other things. So those are the kind of resources that we offer. And of course, VegFest itself, which gives people the opportunity to come and try some really great food, listen to some good speakers. And so it's all about involving people and just trying to explain what we're trying to achieve.
Mm-hmm. So on the topic of VegFest, I do want to do a little plug for a prior podcast that we did. I want to say it was on May 22nd of 2022. So that's on our website. And I'll make sure that we put the link as well as all of the links that you just mentioned in the podcast notes for people to have as a reference point. And
great.
What I love about that podcast that I did with Catherine, as well as a couple of others from the board, is it really went into the history of Michiana VegFest, the story behind it, how it came to be, what was going on during that time. So for anybody who wants a little bit more history and, in a podcast format, it was just a lot of fun that we had during that interview, sharing as I got to learn more about those experiences from the early days of Michiana VegFest and what a phenomenon it was at the very beginning and continues to be. And when is that this year?
It is April 26th, Sunday, April 26th, and it'll be at the Gillespie Center again, 11 o'clock to 5. I think that's the third year we've been at Gillespie, and this is our sixth VegFest, Michiana VegFest. And why we're kind of rather proud about it is that we are now, unfortunately, the only VegFest in Indiana, and really the only VegFest between Chicago and Detroit.
Wow.
So we're the kind of middle ground of this area, because Indianapolis has taken a pause on their VegFest. And I understand that it can be a lot of work. So that's why we're always looking for volunteers and board members and sponsors and things like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's just a lot of food and lectures and products and so many resources that are available there to be able to try, experience, people to talk to, hear from, be educated with. So I really love that event.
Yeah, this year we have Dr. Michael Clapper, Thomas Goodman, and Glenn Mercer is returning. And with the speakers, we try and have one speaker on health, one on the animals, and one on environment. And we'll be doing that again this year. And then a variety of chefs that we'll have doing cooking demonstrations as well. So that's another part of the whole education on plant-based living. But as you say, we have some wonderful food from some great vendors, and they come from Chicago, they come from Fort Wayne, they come from Detroit. They're local, and it's a variety of different approaches to plant-based living, different flavors, different forms of cooking. Yeah.
I'm excited. What does progress over perfection look like when it comes to conscious eating?
Perfection for the individual or perfection for the world?
That is the question, huh?
I think in our mind, perfection for the world would be to get away completely from rearing animals for meat and for dairy products. Um, if this was a purely, simple agrarian life with cattle wandering around the fields, I could kind of get on board with that. But we can't feed the amount of meat that people consume at the moment without going into industrial agriculture. And the sheer cruelty and the sheer horror of, there are 25 million chickens killed every day in this country. Just in this country, 25 million chickens. And worldwide, I think it's around 80 billion animals are killed for food every year. And so perfection for me would be to stop that. Because when you try and do it on this massive scale, the only way to do it is with these horrendous techniques of pigs in crates and all the other horrors that are there. Perfection for individuals, I think, is going fully plant-based, fully vegan, and recognizing that you are no longer causing harm. And Catherine puts it very well. One of the reasons she went vegan was she said, I no longer wanted violence on my plate. And I think that's an amazing way of thinking about it. And I think also perfection is never reached, really, but the way you feel about yourself when you realize that you are no longer part of that violent industry, and the way you get more and more clarity of purpose, of putting the right ingredients into the body, feeling good about it. I think I said it earlier, it's that lightness of mind that I think you get an improved alertness and consciousness of what you are about in the world and the environment.
Absolutely. Thank you. After January ends, how can people continue plant-forward habits in a way that feels nourishing and sustainable? And you hit on this a little bit before with meatless Mondays and not eating meat on Friday and some of those other things. Is there anything that you would like to add?
I'd like to hope that people, with 31 days, that during that time, they get to realize that it's a very enjoyable way of doing things. And so I would love to see people get to the point where if they must eat meat, that it's just a pure kind of 1 or 2 times a month, maybe. That would be wonderful as far as I was concerned. But I think try and think of it as and I've got several friends who've gone vegan who, after 3 months, they noticed the health. So I would try and stretch it into February and into March and see how you feel. And if you've had a doctor's appointment in that time, maybe get some feedback of, what is your cholesterol level? What is your A1C? Has it improved? Because going vegan, 3 months is all it takes to see some dramatic improvements.
It's good to know. That's really not that long of a time.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't. We have a young friend who's actually now on the board, who's early 30s, cholesterol was off the charts. And Glenn Mercer, one of our speakers 3 years ago, got hold of him and said, I'm going to support you going vegan. And within about 3 months, his cholesterol had come way down, and he avoided getting on statins at early 30s.
Wow.
Just by going vegan.
It's remarkable. That's a great story. Are there any other moments or stories that you'd like to share from the community that really helps to capture the spirit of Veganuary for you?
We just had an outing to Pinella restaurant in South Bend, which is totally vegan, and we had about 17 people there. It was just the sheer kind of joy of all getting together and eating vegan, being vegans together, and we just had a blast for the evening. So, if anybody sees some of those up on our site, up on our page, it would be great for people to come and just check it out.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. If listeners take just one intentional step after this episode, what do you hope that it would be?
A little abstract. I'd like people to start thinking about where their food comes from.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's so important to understand that food chain and have a conscious moment every time you go to order food. Where did that food come from? What animal suffered to be there? People I know have a hard time over that, but I think it's very worthwhile having that conscious moment of where is this food from? What industrial system has it been subject to? And it's not just meat. I mean, it's ultra processed. We've heard a lot recently about ultra processed food. Getting back to food as real food, getting away from ultra processed, getting away from industrialization of food, having that thought process as you go to eat something, as you go around the grocery store, I think would be a wonderful starting point for everyone.
I love that. Those are very easy, simple steps. It's just remembering to be able to do that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's very related to what you do. I mean, we need to be conscious.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We're intentional with all the things that we do. Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. Michael, is there anything that we've not hit on that you'd like to make sure that we do before I let you go?
I think we've covered most things. We're already what are we already on the 10th or the 12th? So we're kind of halfway through Veganuary. So if people haven't started, make it a vegan January, second half of January and first half of February or something like that. Give it a try.
Yep. 31 days can start with today, right?
Today, absolutely.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for all that you and the local vegan community do here with Michiana VegFest and Veg EDU and Veg Michiana. And it's just they're such powerful places to be able to meet and have our questions answered, and just be able to meet with like-minded people as well and have fun. So thank you for supporting this and the ways that you do, Michael.
And thank you for everything you do as well. And thanks for putting this podcast on. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. You're welcome.
Okay. Thank you.
That is a wrap on today's episode. Thank you so much for joining us in the Hive. We hope you're walking away inspired, energized, and ready to expand, evolve, and grow on your own journey. If this conversation moved you, sparked a new idea, or made you feel more connected, share it with a friend and help us keep the buzz alive. Conscious Michiana is a nonprofit powered by community, and your support helps us keep creating meaningful content, hosting events, and connecting people to the resources they need to thrive. Visit consciousmichiana.org/donate to contribute, because every drop of honey helps. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and stay connected with us on social media. Until next time, be well, Michiana. The Michiana Hivecast, buzzing with wellness, connection, and conscious living in Michiana. Expand, evolve, grow.